Okay, we're going to go back to the basics, and I'm going to show you how to start a fly and get through some of these techniques. First of all, we're going to pinch the barb on this one. I've already pinched it, but normally what I'll do is I'll go in my vise and I'll pinch the barb down for safety's sake. That's a good practice to do when you're fishing. You can get this caught in somebody's skin and it'll pop out real easy. It also is safer for the fish as well when you're practicing catch and release. So number one, so what we're going to do is we're going to use this thread. We're going to go over the top and we're going to put on what's called a jam knot. And basically that's how we start our thread on the hook. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to wrap back over the top of that tag end, and that just basically ties that thread in. That's one way to do it. The other way is a way of saving thread without having to cut that entire tag off of there and throwing it away. We can start off with a little bit of thread here. Kind of just pinch that down over the top. Kind of do the same thing that we were doing just now with the long end, but now wrap back over. And now we can save 3 inches of thread there. Not that it matters too much, but and there we go. So there's the start of your fly, getting that thread put on the hook. Now one thing that we do when we tie flies is we're trying to mimic flies that are naturally in the water system, aquatic flies in the water system that the fish are eating. And so we match size, color, and shape of the fly that they're eating, and also the stage of the fly, so whether it's a larva or a pupa or an adult fly. Larvae, they bounce around on the bottom. They're actually growing on rocks and sticks and trees and things in the water, vegetation in the water, and they'll come off of those and tumble down the bottom of the river, and that's where the fish are eating larvae. Pupa are the emerger stage, when the fly is actually starting to emerge up to the surface of the water to become an adult fly, which will have a tiny little wing on it and a wing case on it, and then once they come to the surface, they sprout their wings and become an adult fly. So you have those stages of how those flies are developing in the water. Now I'll tie a kind of a basic larva stage here real quick. This is a pretty big size hook here. I normally wouldn't be tying this to actually catch something. The fish are eating things that are really, really small in the water. This is about a size 14 hook, and the fish will be eating something more of a size 20 to 22, which the smaller the size of hook, the bigger the number. So you go up to a 22, it's a way smaller hook, and those are the sizes they're eating where we fish on the South Platte. Anyway, I'm going to start that thread on the hook just like we talked about. Now fly tying basically is tying material on a hook that fur, deer hair, elk hair, feathers, different things on there, fibers that are gonna again mimic what we're catching fish with. And so a larva actually has a basic rib to it, and they call it segmentation of the fly. And I'm going to go ahead and tie on a chartreuse wire here to act as my rib. So what we do is we start that in there, couple of wraps in there to tie it down, and then we're going to go back to the bend of the hook and tighten that in. And again, we're going to do close touching wraps with that all the way back. And then bring that thread back, bring it forward to the bend of the, or to the eye of the hook. So then we'll just spiral this around so that we did just close touching wraps with that thread. We're going to do we're going to polymer this wire back over without close touching wraps, but we're going to make segmentation on the body here as it goes to the front of the hook here. So that would basically look like the segmentation of a fly in the larva stage of that fly. And then at that point you can put on different things on the head of that. You can actually use a bead. I guess slide a bead on the front of that before I start out this entire hook, this process. Put a bead there. Dubbing, and we'll get into dubbing here and how that is put on. Let me do that real quick here. So dubbing is basically a synthetic material, you can, or a fur of some sort, a beaver. Again, this is a super fine synthetic. They have different textures, different thicknesses. And what you're doing is at this point you're putting the dubbing around the thread. You can see that, wrapping it around the thread. And to do these flies, a lot of beginners will want to put a ton of dubbing on, but the less the better when you're tying flies. So what I'll do is I'll take that and I'll tie that, wrap that around the head right there, and put a nice head on the fly here. Okay. Now at that point, there's several different colors and shapes and sizes of a pattern like this, a larva pattern. That's basically a midge. If I was to call that a midge, that'd be like a zebra midge or a black beauty midge. Next thing to do is you can whip finish, and that would be a completely separate video to teach you how to whip finish. But basically, you're going to put a knot on the end of that with this tool, wrap around a couple of times, and that's your knot. Okay. Again, at this point, this fly is again basic. You can add wings to it. You can add a tail to it. You can add legs. It could be a you can make that look like an ant with the same material here as with on the front and the back. And there's so many different ways to do this, but these are the few of the basic skills in order to at least get a fly started and get one finished here. Again, this is just a basic fly. If you wanted to put a little wing on a wing case on that, as an emerger, we can kind of just go through that real quick here. I would go back to there, tie in a little piece of foam here. You can do foam, you can do feather, you can do all kinds of different things to make that wing case. So all I would do there is put a wing case on that, and that would be basically an emerger now. So there's a lot of versatility when it comes to tying flies. It's all up to your imagination and creativity. That's why I like tying my own flies. Now the basics of a fly that you're fishing with is basically the shape of the flies they're eating, the color, and the size. Shape, color, and size. And it could, it doesn't even have to be a perfect looking fly. It could be something that just that shape, color, and size, and you put that on the hook, something that you tied, and it may not be again the perfect fly, but you can catch fish with it. But part of the fly tying is the art of it, the creativity of it, and your imagination. So there's a basic fly to get started with. Thanks for watching.